I'm begging you. Hurry up! The exiled soldier stepped forward, then did the unthinkable. The desert of Aurelia 9 was an ocean of iron sand and silence. Every gust of wind dragged a metallic hiss across the dunes, each grain sharp enough to scar exposed steel. On the horizon, the sun hung low, a red dwarf star bleeding through storm haze, casting long shadows over a rusted communications outpost that hadn't transmitted a message in years. Commander Ryland Thorne sat alone on the edge of its roof, wiping solar grit from a broken drone's receiver. The drone's eye flickered, blew once, then died again. He exhaled through his teeth. "Still dead," he muttered. The words vanished into the wind. Out here, no one answered anyway. 15 years. 15 years since the war ended. 15 since he'd been more than a ghost clinging to a promise he barely understood. The galaxy had called it peace. Ryland knew better. The silence after a massacre wasn't peace. It was exhaustion. Humanity had withdrawn from the stars, sealing its wounds, pretending the screams of alien and human alike weren't echoing across the void. He dropped the drone into a crate and stared toward the horizon. The sand shimmered. Even after all these years, the emptiness could trick him into seeing her face. Dr. Lyra Varen, her gloved hands steady under fire, her voice a calm whisper in chaos. "Heal them, Ryland. Don't become like them." Her words had followed him into exile like a ghost. The outpost comms array flickered suddenly to life. A crackling pulse. Static first, then a tone, 3 notes repeated twice. The hairs at the back of his neck rose. That tone was supposed to be impossible. It was Lyra's encryption signature, one she'd coded herself during the war. And then through the static came a fractured voice, old, desperate. "Ryland, as you vowed, she's in danger, coordinates attached. Hurry!" He froze. It couldn't be. Dr. Eller Voss, his mentor, long presumed dead. The message cut out before he could respond. A second later, the outpost's radar pinged. A life-form signature, faint, moving through the dunes. No transponder, no ID, just motion. Ryland's heart hammered. He hadn't seen another living soul on Aurelia 9 in over a decade. He grabbed his rifle from the wall, slung it across his shoulder, and climbed into the rover. Its engines coughed to life with a shudder. Dust swirled beneath the repulsor pads as he turned toward the blinking coordinates. The journey took him 3 hours through terrain that looked like a battlefield frozen in time. Burnt skeletons of drop ships lay half buried in sand, the relics of the Silence War, when humanity had nearly wiped itself out fighting a coalition of alien species. The truce that followed hadn't brought trust, only segregation. Humans rebuilt inward. The rest of the galaxy tried to forget them. He stopped when he saw smoke, thin, gray, drifting from a half-collapsed shuttle wreck. Its hull shimmered with iridescent metal, unmistakably alien in origin. Ryland's stomach tightened. He approached cautiously, weapon ready, scanning for life. The hatch was torn open. Inside, the air smelled of ozone and blood. And there she was. A young woman slumped against the console, skin the color of pearl-veined silver. Her veins pulsed faintly with blue bioluminescence, and when her eyes fluttered open, they glowed faintly gold. She wasn't human, at least not entirely. She looked at him through the smoke and tried to speak. "Help. Me," she whispered, voice hoarse, edged with something musical. He crouched beside her, checking her vitals with instinctive precision. Wound to the side, plasma burn. Shallow breathing, weak pulse. He recognized the biotech embedded near her collarbone. A memory core, alien-made, dangerous, illegal. "You're carrying something that'll get you killed," he muttered. Her trembling fingers caught his wrist with surprising strength. "He's coming," she breathed. "The one who owns my blood." And then she passed out. Ryland stared at her in silence, jaw tight. He should have walked away. Every rule he lived by screamed to leave her there, to stay unseen, uninvolved. But that message, Voss's voice, echoed through his mind. "As you vowed." He exhaled sharply and tore the medkit from his pack. Damn it, Voss, he growled, and went to work. He sealed the burn with nanogel, wrapped it tight, checked her vitals again. When she groaned, it wasn't from pain, but something else, fear. Her skin shimmered faintly under his touch, light chasing beneath the surface like water disturbed. The sight triggered a memory. Lyra's hands glowing under a surgical lamp, her voice steady amid chaos. You save them because it's who you are, not because they deserve it. When he finished, he carried the alien woman out of the wreck and into the rover. She was light, almost weightless, like the gravity barely touched her. As he laid her across the seat, he noticed strange sigils burned into the shuttle's hull. Symbols of the dominion of Kadron Holt, one of the last human warlords who'd refused peace. His gut twisted. Holt. The name was a ghost from his past, an officer who'd once commanded him before the atrocities. If Holt's men were involved, this wasn't a coincidence. The rover's scanner beeped, a heat signature approaching fast from the east. Multiple craft, low altitude. Rylan cursed and hit the ignition. The rover shot forward, engines whining as dust plumed behind them. The alien woman stirred faintly, her voice barely audible over the roar. Don't let them take it. Her hand pressed against her chest, the memory core pulsing beneath her skin like a heartbeat. I wasn't planning on it, Rylan said grimly. The chase began across the desert. Plasma streaks cut through the dusk, grazing the rover's hull. He weaved between dunes, every jolt rattling his bones. The pursuing ships drew closer, their spotlights sweeping the sand. He caught the insignia on their wings, Holt's private fleet. One missile slammed into a dune beside them, the explosion flipping the rover onto its side. Metal screamed. Rylan's vision went white. When it cleared, the cockpit was half buried in sand. He dragged himself free, coughing. The alien woman was still unconscious, pinned by debris. Above them, one of the ships descended, dust swirling in a ring of burning air. Rylan's rifle was gone. His sidearm lay half buried, out of reach. The ship's ramp opened with a hiss. Silhouetted in the orange light stood a man in dark armor, tall, broad, helmeted. A familiar voice boomed through the speakers. Thorn, didn't expect to find you breathing out here? Rylan's blood ran cold. Holt. The warlord's voice carried amusement. You've got something of mine. Step away from the hybrid, and I might let you keep your other arm. Rylan glanced at the alien girl, her breathing shallow, the glow beneath her skin fading. If Holt took her, she'd die. If he stayed, he'd die too. He reached into his jacket and triggered the old med beacon Lyra had built for him years ago, a fail-safe flare keyed to her frequency. The beacon ignited, a burst of blue light that seared the air. Holt cursed and shielded his visor. Rylan used the moment to grab the girl, roll them both into the sand chute beside the wreck, and slide down into the darkness. Plasma bolts followed, carving molten streaks through the rock. They tumbled into an ancient trench, remnants of alien ruins half swallowed by the desert. The air shimmered with faint bioluminescent vines, the last echoes of an extinct civilization. Rylan cradled the alien woman, her pulse barely there. Hold on, he murmured. Her eyelids fluttered. Who are you? Just a man who can't stop making bad decisions. Her lips curved faintly, almost a smile. Then you'll do. Overhead, Holt's voice echoed through a loudspeaker, distant but hunting. You can't hide, Thorn. The desert doesn't keep secrets forever. Rylan looked up at the endless cliffs. The wind howled through them like voices of the dead. He pressed his palm against the faint blue pulse beneath the girl's skin, feeling it sink with his own heartbeat. The desert had given him ghosts for 15 years. Now it had given him a reason to fight again. He hoisted her into his arms and started toward the canyon's shadow. Behind them, the storm began to rise. And in the static above, the beacon whispered once more, faint, distorted, but unmistakable. As you vowed, protect her, for she carries what remains of us all. The storm came alive like a beast unchained. Sand turned to liquid fire under the red light of the dying sun. swirling around the canyon in roaring spirals. Rylan fought against the wind, shielding the alien girl's face with his arm as they pushed deeper into the ruins. The ruins pulsed faintly, ancient stone fused with alien circuitry, the remains of a civilization that had vanished before humanity ever reached the stars. Lines of light traced across the walls, responding to their movement as if recognizing something long forgotten. He lowered her onto a flat surface that might once have been an altar, brushing dust from her silver skin. Her pulse was weak, her breathing shallow. The faint bioluminescent glow along her veins flickered, fading in rhythm with the storm outside. "Stay with me," he muttered, pulling open his med pack. His hands moved on instinct, cutting away damaged fabric, sealing plasma burns with nanogel. The smell of ionized blood filled the air. He activated a med injector, loaded it with adrenaline synth, and pressed it against her neck. "Come on," he whispered, pressing until it hissed. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then her body arched, eyes snapping open in a flash of golden light. A sound, half gasp, half melody, escaped her lips. She blinked up at him, dazed, pupils dilating, as her focus sharpened. "Where am I?" "Somewhere the storm can't reach," Rylan said. "You were hit bad. You need rest." She looked around the glowing chamber, her gaze wary. "You shouldn't have helped me." "Yeah, I've been told that before," he replied, pulling his jacket tighter. "What's your name?" She hesitated as if names were dangerous things. "Asherin." He nodded once. "Rylan Thorne." Her expression shifted faintly. The human ex-commander. The deserter. That caught him off guard. "You know me?" She turned her face away. "I know of you. My mother told me about the human medic who refused to obey when they ordered him to burn the wounded alive." The words struck like a blade. He looked at her sharply, but she wasn't mocking him. There was something else. Recognition. "Your mother?" he asked slowly. "She served in the hybrid refugee camps during the war," Asha said softly. Her name was Lyra Varen. The world seemed to tilt. Rylan froze. Lyra, the woman whose voice haunted his nights, whose dying words had carved his exile. He swallowed hard. "That's impossible." "She saved you once," Asha said. "She told me before she died that one day you'd have to save someone else in return." The storm's howl faded to a dull echo in his ears. Lyra's voice, soft and steady, came back to him. "Heal them, Rylan. Promise me you won't stop." He sat down beside the alien girl, staring at the faint light pulsing under her skin. "You have no idea what you just did to my world," he muttered. "I think I do," she said quietly. They sat in silence, the ruins humming softly around them. After a moment, Asha turned her head toward him. "You're being hunted," she said simply. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Story of my life." "I mean now," she pressed. "Kadrin Holt won't stop until he finds me. And you were there. That means he'll come for you too." He leaned against the stone, closing his eyes. "You said he owns your blood. What did you mean?" She hesitated, her hands trembling faintly. Then she lifted her palm, revealing faint circuitry etched into her skin, organic and luminous, alive. "My people were created during the war, human DNA fused with alien resonance strands. We were built to bridge minds, but it made us valuable. The Dominion used our kind as conduits, to control soldiers, override pain, manipulate emotion." Rylan felt a chill crawl down his spine. "And Holt? He found a way to bind us to his command. My blood carries his encryption. I escaped with this." She touched the glowing node near her collarbone, the memory core pulsing faintly with its own light. "What is it?" "Everything," she said softly. "My mother called it the seed of empathy, the last remnant of what your species once had before the war burned it out." He stared at her, trying to make sense of the words. "You're saying that thing inside you can rewrite humans?" She met his gaze without flinching. "It can heal them." Rylan rose abruptly and began to pace, running his hand through his hair. You have no idea what kind of people we are anymore, he said bitterly. You hand that kind of power to anyone, they'll turn it into a weapon before the day's done. That's why I came here, she said. To hide it from them, to hide it from him. Lightning flared outside, lighting up the chamber. Asha winced, pressing her hand to her wound. Rylan moved closer, kneeling beside her again. Easy, he murmured, checking the bandage. Her eyes found his, soft but steady. You think helping me will save you from your guilt? He froze. I felt it, she said, when you touched me, when you pulled me out of the wreck. My kind, when we're near someone, we feel what they carry inside. Your pain is heavy. He looked away. Then do yourself a favor and stop looking. He smiled faintly despite the pain. You think hiding in this wasteland makes you invisible? It doesn't. It just makes you lonely. Something twisted in his chest. For years, no one had spoken to him like that, with quiet truth instead of accusation. Before he could answer, his wristcom chirped. He tapped the crack of his screen and froze. The encrypted seal that flashed there was unmistakable. Dr. Alar Voss. Rylan activated the link. Static cleared, and a grainy, hollow image flickered into being. A gray-bearded man with tired eyes. Rylan, Voss said, voice strained, if you're seeing this, the message reached you. The girl, Asha, is carrying something vital. The Dominion's last weapon, or its salvation. You know which side you stand on. Voss, Rylan said, his voice rough. You're supposed to be dead. Not yet, the old man replied. But time's short. Holt's men have orders to recover the hybrid alive. They'll burn entire sectors to do it. Keep her safe until I reach you. Rylan frowned. Where are you? The signal crackled violently. North Ridge Ruins. 2 days' ride from your outpost. Static drowned his words, and then the transmission cut off. Rylan cursed softly. Asha had turned her head toward him, eyes wide. You trust him? He hesitated. I used to. Then you shouldn't, she said. The Dominion knows him too. If they find him, they'll use him to find us. Rylan looked out toward the storm. The lightning flashed blue now instead of red, the kind that didn't belong to weather, but to plasma engines. They're scanning, he muttered. They'll find the wreck before dawn. He checked his sidearm, the old war model, still functional after years of neglect. Then he glanced at Asha. You can walk? She nodded weakly. Not far. He reached into his pack and handed her a small device, a pulse shield emitter. Stay close. If we're lucky, we can reach my rover before they do. A faint smile ghosted her lips. You still believe in luck? He didn't answer. Instead, he offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. Her skin was cool, almost electric. When her fingers brushed his, the faint resonance of her mind brushed his own. A flicker of warmth, sorrow, and something like hope. It was disorienting, but not unpleasant. They moved through the tunnels, guided by faint light from the alien walls. Outside, the wind howled louder, mingled with the distant hum of engines. As they climbed toward the surface, Rylan felt something stir, a strange, steady calm he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't confidence. It was purpose. When they reached the mouth of the canyon, the storm had thinned, revealing a sky splintered by twin moons. The rover was half buried but intact. He brushed off the sand, checking power levels. Get in, he said. Asha hesitated, looking back toward the ruins. This place, it remembers her. Rylan frowned. Remembers who? Lyra, she whispered. She came here once, before she died. He froze, heart pounding. What? Asha met his gaze. She was looking for the same thing Holt is hunting now. The seed. She told me she was leaving it, where only someone who had lost faith in humanity would ever find it. Rylan stared at her, realization settling like a storm breaking open inside him. She meant me, he said softly. Before Asha could respond, a beam of white light sliced through the clouds above them. a ship's spotlight. Ryland shoved her into the rover and slammed the hatch. "Hold on!" Engines roared. The sand exploded around them as the rover shot forward, weaving between shattered cliffs. Plasma bolts rained down, scorching the ground. Asha gripped the seat, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Why are you doing this?" He didn't look at her. "Because I made a promise I never kept." To her? He met her eyes briefly. "No, to myself." The ship behind them loomed closer, its cannons charging. Ryland hit the thrusters, propelling them over a ridge just as a blast tore through the canyon. The rover went airborne, crashed down hard, and skidded across the sand before halting in a spray of dust. The engine sputtered, then died. Silence. Asha turned to him, her voice trembling. "They won't stop." Ryland looked at the glowing horizon, then back at her. "Neither will I." Outside, the desert began to glow with incoming engines. Holt's men were closing in. But in the dim light of the rover, Asha reached out, her hand brushing his again. This time deliberately, and for a brief, impossible second, he saw through her eyes. Stars bleeding into one another. A galaxy crying for something it had forgotten how to feel. When the vision faded, he whispered the only truth he had left. "We're not running," he said. "We're going home." The words sounded strange, like a prayer he didn't know he still remembered. Above them, lightning forked across the twin moons. Holt's ships descended, and in the heart of the storm, the seed within Asha pulsed once, bright enough to light the dark. The night sky over Aurelia 9 was torn open by thunder. The twin moons hung low, painting the sand in fractured silver light. Asha Wren lay against the window of the rover, half awake, half dreaming. Outside, the dunes moved like a living sea, whispering as they passed. Ryland steered through the storm, jaw clenched, every muscle coiled tight. He hadn't spoken since the crash. The silence between them was heavy with everything unspoken, fear, confusion, and something that felt like inevitability. He saw the ridge first, a sharp line against the horizon. Beyond it, buried in shadow, stood his refuge, the Aurelia outpost, a fortress of scrap metal and half-dead solar panels. Once a Dominion med station before the war. It was the only place left where the scanners wouldn't immediately pick them up. "Almost there," he said finally, voice low. Asha stirred. "I can feel them," she whispered. "The ones chasing us. They're angry." He shot her a quick glance. "Can you feel them from this far?" She nodded faintly. "Their minds. They burn red. The resonance leaves trails. It's how I survived this long." He didn't answer, but his grip on the controls tightened. The outpost rose ahead, rusted towers, broken comm arrays, a field of forgotten machines sleeping beneath dust. He parked behind the hangar, killed the lights, and helped her out. The moment her boots touched the ground, the old walls hummed faintly, as if recognizing her. Ryland noticed it too. "This place reacts to you." "It remembers her," Asha murmured. "Lyra." He led her inside. The corridors were dim, the air stale with machine oil and dust. His old equipment was still where he'd left it. Shelves lined with medical kits, hydrocells, and fragments of tech scavenged over the years. He motioned for her to sit on the medbed while he powered up the generators. The lights flickered once, then steadied. "Take off the bandage," he said. "I need to check the wound." She obeyed, wincing slightly as he peeled it back. The burn had nearly closed, healed faster than any human injury could. Beneath the skin, faint veins of blue light pulsed in time with her heartbeat. "You're regenerating," he said quietly. "It's the hybrid strand," she said. "Half alien, half human. It never stops trying to repair what's broken." He met her gaze. "That must be nice." Her expression softened. "It hurts too. The body heals, but the memories, they echo." He turned away, rummaging through his supplies, pretending not to hear the weight in her voice. But her words lingered. He knew that pain. the kind that never stopped echoing. Outside, the storm faded into calm. The desert was eerily still, the kind of stillness that warned of something worse. Asha watched him from the bed. "You built this place alone?" "Piece by piece," he said. "After the war, I was done with people. Machines don't lie. And yet you saved me." He looked up sharply. "Don't read into it. I made a promise once. I'm just keeping it." "To Lyra?" He hesitated. "She was more than a comrade. She believed in something I couldn't." "What was that?" "That humans could still deserve to live." Asha tilted her head, studying him. "And now?" He sighed, sitting down across from her. "Now I think she was wrong, but I want her to be right." The silence between them stretched, thick, fragile, alive. Then the outpost's early warning beacon blinked red. Incoming craft, 3 of them, approaching low and fast. Ryland's instincts flared. He rushed to the terminal. "They found us!" Asha stood, steadying herself. "It's Holt. How can you tell?" "I can feel his mind. It's loud, cold. He's close." He grabbed his rifle, checked the charge. "We hold them off here. There's enough cover, and this place still has automated turrets buried under the sand." She caught his arm. "You can't fight all of them." "I don't need to," he said. "Just enough to make them forget what they're chasing." Asha's eyes glowed faintly. "Let me help." He frowned. "You can barely stand." "I don't need to fight," she said. "I can disrupt their link. Holt controls his soldiers through a shared command channel. If I fracture it, they'll lose cohesion." He studied her, torn between logic and instinct. "You're sure you can do that?" "No," she admitted, a faint smile touching her lips. "But neither of us seem to be good at playing safe." Ryland almost smiled. "Almost." "Fine. Do what you have to." They moved quickly. He activated the perimeter defenses, rusted turrets whirring to life, sensors blinking through the haze. Asha sat near the central console, eyes closed, hands resting on the metal. The faint hum of the outpost deepened, lights flickering as energy shifted toward her. Ryland felt the temperature drop. The air shimmered around her, her veins glowing brighter until the entire room pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. He crouched beside her. "What's happening?" "I'm reaching into the command net," she said, voice distant. "Their machines still carry traces of our resonance code. I can find it, twist it." Her breathing quickened. Sparks danced along the walls. Ryland felt pressure in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes. Outside, engines roared. The first plasma burst hit the shields, shaking the outpost. Sand sprayed across the windows. Ryland sprinted to the defense console, returning fire. The old cannon spat bolts of light into the storm, striking one of the ships and sending it spiraling into the dunes. Asha cried out softly, clutching her head. "Too many mines. Too much noise." Ryland turned from the console, crossing to her. "Break the link, Asha. You'll burn yourself out." Her eyes flashed open, pure gold. "Not yet." A pulse of energy rippled outward from her body. The lights in the outpost flared white. Outside, the second ship froze midair, its thrusters dying. It crashed into the desert with a sound like thunder. The shockwave threw Ryland off balance. He hit the floor hard, vision blurring. When he looked up, Asha had collapsed, smoke curling from her fingertips. He crawled to her, checking for a pulse. It was faint, but steady. "Hey," he said, shaking her gently. "Stay with me." Her eyes fluttered open. "Did it work?" He glanced at the scanner. Only one ship remained, circling warily in the distance. "You tell me." She smiled weakly. "Then we're not dead yet." Ryland exhaled, resting his forehead against her shoulder for a moment, exhaustion washing over him. The silence that followed was different, no longer empty, but full of something fragile. After a while, he lifted her onto the medbed again. "You burned a lot of energy. You need rest." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You shouldn't care so much. It'll get you killed." He looked at her for a long moment. Caring's the only thing that's ever made me human. She smiled faintly. Then maybe that's why Lyra trusted you. He froze. What did you just say? Asha met his gaze, her golden eyes dimming. Lyra told me once, she was building something for you. Something that would find you when you were ready to believe again. Ryland's heart thudded. The beacon. Asha nodded slowly. The seed. It called me too. That's why I came here. Outside, the last ship descended, its spotlight sweeping across the dunes. The outpost trembled as heavy boots hit the sand. Ryland's rifle hummed in his hands. He looked toward the door, then back at her. You stay down. No heroics this time. She gave a ghost of a smile. I'll try. He stepped into the corridor, the door sliding shut behind him. The desert wind howled through the gaps in the walls. Shadows moved beyond the floodlights, armed figures, dark armor glinting. Then a voice cut through the silence. Calm, cold, familiar. Ryland Thorne, you never did learn when to walk away. Cadron Holt stepped into the light, helmet retracting to reveal a face aged by war and cruelty. His eyes were metallic gray, unblinking. Ryland leveled his rifle. Still killing anything that breathes, I see. Holt smiled faintly. Only what stands between me and progress. Progress doesn't come from chains, Ryland said. Holt's smile faded. You always were sentimental. That's why you lost. Ryland's finger tightened on the trigger. Not this time. Before Holt could respond, the outpost lights flickered. Asha's doing. The resonance field pulsed through the walls, catching the enemy's armor systems off guard. Sparks erupted, weapons shorted out. Ryland seized the moment, diving for cover and firing. The first two soldiers went down, the air thick with plasma fire. Holt ducked behind a pillar, returning shots. Shine. Through the chaos, Ryland heard Asha's faint voice in his mind, not through the comms, but through resonance. Don't fight him in anger, Ryland. He feeds on it. He gritted his teeth, focused his aim. You wanted me, Holt. Come take me. Outside, the horizon began to glow, not from engines, but from something deeper beneath the sand. The ruins were waking again, drawn by Asha's pulse. Holt noticed it too. What have you done? Ryland didn't answer. He only whispered under his breath. He did the unthinkable. The ground shook, the dunes split open with a blinding surge of blue light. And as the outpost trembled around them, Asha's voice echoed once more, soft, broken, but resolute. I'm not running anymore. The storm outside turned white. Holt's men shouted. And somewhere in the blinding light, Ryland realized that for the first time in years, he wasn't fighting just to survive. He was fighting to keep something alive. The light didn't fade, it tore. It ripped through the desert like a blade, sending shockwaves across the dunes. The ruins beneath the outpost groaned, awakening from centuries of silence. Every wall vibrated, veins of blue and white pulsing through the metal, like the heartbeat of something ancient and alive. Ryland stumbled as the ground heaved under his boots. Sparks danced along the corridor, the old systems rebooting themselves in languages long dead. Through the chaos, Holt's soldiers regrouped, forming a line, weapons raised. Outside, thunder rolled from the rising storm. But it wasn't weather, it was energy. Asha Wren was in the medbay, her body radiating with a soft golden light, her pulse syncing with the ruin's rhythm. She was drawing on the resonance, awakening it fully. Ryland saw it in the monitors, her eyes open, glowing like twin suns. Asha, he shouted over the comm. Whatever you're doing, stop before you burn out. Her voice came through the static, calm and distant. It's already happening, Ryland. The ruins are alive. They're responding to the seed. Holt emerged from the smoke, armor cracked, face half lit by the blue glow. You have no idea what she's unleashing, he hissed. Those ruins are weapons, machines left behind to rewrite entire ecosystems. If she bonds with them, they'll wipe this world clean. Ryland's pulse slammed in his throat. You'd rather she die so you can own it, Holt's lip curled. Someone has to control it. Humanity can't survive on empathy. That's your problem, Rylan growled. You never tried. The floor buckled again, sending both men crashing to their knees. Rylan rolled, fired a plasma bolt that grazed Holt's shoulder, the blast lighting up the dark. Holt snarled and fired back, each shot splintering the walls with molten spray. Rylan dove behind a bulkhead, mind racing. If Asha couldn't control the resonance, the outpost could implode, taking them all with it. He had to reach her. He slammed a charge into the wall near Holt's cover and triggered it. The explosion threw the warlord backward into the sand outside. Rylan didn't wait. He sprinted through the flickering corridors toward the medbay, dodging falling beams and arcing electricity. He burst into the chamber. Asha hovered inches above the bed, hair drifting like it was underwater. The room pulsed around her, symbols on the walls blazing to life, forming a halo of energy. "Asha, you're killing yourself," he shouted. Her gaze met his, luminous, distant. "No, I'm remembering." "What are you?" Before he could finish, images flooded his mind, visions not his own. Lyra's hands glowing under a surgical lamp, a battlefield of broken skies, and then Asha's mother holding a child in her arms, whispering words of comfort as the world burned around them. "One day the light you carry will find the one who has forgotten how to feel." The connection snapped. Rylan staggered, clutching his head. Asha's voice trembled. "It's her. She built this place to protect the seed. It was never meant to destroy. It was meant to restore." Outside, Holt's remaining soldiers stormed the entrance. Plasma fire shattered the doorframe. Rylan turned, firing back in bursts. "You want her alive, Holt? You'll have to crawl over me." The fight exploded through the outpost. Old turrets came alive, spraying arcs of blue fire. The sand outside lit with combat flashes. Holt's helmet sealed again, his silhouette cutting through the smoke like a machine built for war. Rylan met him halfway in the corridor. Rifle useless now, he swung it like a club, cracking it against Holt's chest plate. The warlord countered, backhanding him into the wall. Metal screamed. "You think you can save her?" Holt snarled, grabbing Rylan by the throat. "You couldn't even save your own." Rylan gasped for air, vision blurring. "Maybe not, but she's not alone." He drove his knife into the joint of Holt's armor, twisting. The warlord roared, slamming him back against the wall. The knife clattered away. "Still too soft," Holt spat. Then a new sound filled the air, low, harmonic, almost like singing. The walls shimmered. Asha stepped into the corridor, light trailing from her hands. Her voice wasn't raised, but every word vibrated in the bones. "Enough." The air itself shifted. Holt froze mid-motion, his weapon dropping. The ruins around them responded to her tone, light threading through every crack, every circuit, until the outpost glowed like a living heart. Rylan fell to his knees, shielding his eyes. "Asha, stop! You'll kill yourself!" Her gaze softened as she looked at him. "It's not death, it's release." The resonance flared, sweeping outward in a sphere of golden light. The soldiers outside dropped their weapons, their armor humming as circuits overloaded. Holt staggered, eyes wide, unable to move. "What are you doing?" he choked. "Showing you what you've forgotten," she whispered. A flood of visions poured through the room, memories, emotions, fragments of humanity's past. Children laughing under alien skies, soldiers burying enemies with their own hands. The first time humans and hybrids stood side by side, believing the universe could still be kind. Rylan felt tears sting his eyes. Holt fell to his knees, gasping, face twisted in something between horror and awe. When the light faded, Asha collapsed. Rylan caught her before she hit the floor, cradling her against his chest. Holt looked up, dazed. "What did she do?" "She reminded us," Rylan said softly. Outside, the storm cleared. The twin moons broke through the clouds, shining down on the outpost now pulsing with faint blue life. Flowers, small, glowing wildflowers, began to sprout from the cracks in the metal, their light spreading across the sand like a quiet fire. Rylan laid Asha down gently, her breathing shallow. He brushed a strand of silver hair from her face. "Stay with me," he whispered. Her eyes flickered open. "Rylan, is it over?" He looked at the horizon, where Holt's soldiers knelt, weapons abandoned, the warlord himself staring blankly into the new dawn. "Not yet," he said, "but it's changing." She smiled weakly. Then maybe the promise wasn't wasted. Rylan squeezed her hand. "You made it real." The ruins pulsed one last time, their glow fading into steady calm. Above them, the comm beacon crackled to life. A familiar voice, Dr. Eller Voss, came through the static, urgent but trembling with hope. "Rylan, I've seen the energy surge from orbit. What have you done?" Rylan looked up at the comm panel, voice steady. "We reminded the world what it means to be human." There was silence on the other end. Then Voss whispered, "Then perhaps we still have a chance." The transmission cut off. Holt stood at the doorway, his armor scarred, his eyes human again. "You could have killed me," he said quietly. Rylan looked at him. "We don't need to repeat history." Holt's gaze dropped to Asha, then back at him. "She changed you." "She changed everything," Rylan replied. For the first time in years, Holt nodded, not in surrender, but in something like respect. He turned and walked out into the desert, disappearing into the pale light. Rylan carried Asha outside. The air smelled clean, alive. The horizon shimmered with tiny lights, the ruins awakening across the desert. He looked down at her as the first wind stirred. Her eyes opened again, faint but smiling. "You kept your promise," she whispered. He felt something tighten in his chest. "And I'll keep it again, for as long as it takes." She reached up, brushing her fingers across his cheek. "Then maybe humanity's heart isn't gone after all." The sun began to rise over Aurelia 9, lighting the wildflowers blooming across the sand. Rylan stood there, holding her, the ruins humming softly beneath their feet. And for the first time in 15 years, he believed Lyra had been right, the world could still be healed, one heart at a time. The dawn came quiet, too quiet for a world that had just survived war. The wind brushed over the sand like a soft breath, stirring trails of silver dust that shimmered in the pale morning light. The outpost stood in ruins, its walls scorched and trembling, but alive. Every panel, every broken circuit hummed faintly, like the remnants of a song the planet had remembered after centuries of silence. Rylan Thorne knelt beside Asha Wren, her body half covered by his jacket, her skin still glowing faintly with the last echo of the resonance. Around them, flowers continued to bloom where the light had touched the sand, each one small, luminescent, their petals reflecting the dawn. He pressed 2 fingers to her throat, still a pulse, faint but there. Her breathing was shallow but steady. Relief washed over him, so fierce it almost broke him. He looked toward the horizon. Holt and his surviving soldiers were gone, their crafts retreating into the high atmosphere. No vengeance, no pursuit, only silence. The storm was over. But peace was fragile. Rylan stood, his coat torn and dusted with blood and ash. The communication console inside the outpost crackled again, Dr. Eller Voss's voice breaking through. "Rylan, can you hear me? The orbital scans are off the charts. You triggered something planetary. The Dominion fleet has gone dark. What happened down there?" Rylan's gaze drifted toward Asha. "She happened," he said quietly. "Is she alive?" "She will be." Voss's voice softened, awe replacing fear. "Do you understand what this means? The seed's resonance. It's spreading through Aurelia's atmosphere. The planet's biosphere is reviving itself. You've done what no one thought possible." Rylan crouched beside Asha again, brushing a strand of her silver hair away from her face. "We didn't do this to be remembered," he said. "We did it so we could start over." A pause. Then Voss whispered, "Then maybe humanity still deserves the stars." The line cut out. Rylan sat there for a long while, listening to the hum of the planet beneath him. Then slowly Asha stirred. Her voice was weak, but clear. Is it morning? He smiled faintly. Yeah, you missed the sunrise. She tried to sit up. He steadied her gently. What? What happened? You kept your promise, he said. Her eyes open, golden light soft and warm. No, you did. He looked out at the wildflowers spreading across the dunes, their glow pulsing in rhythm with the planet. Lyra once said this world could bloom again. I thought she was dreaming. Asha's hand found his. Dreams are just memories waiting to be born. He exhaled a shaky laugh. You sound like her. She smiled faintly. Maybe that's because she made us both. Rylan froze. What do you mean? When she built the seed, she didn't just code it into me, Asha whispered. She linked it to you. The resonance. It needed two souls, one human, one hybrid. She believed empathy couldn't survive without both halves. He stared at her, realization dawning slowly. So all this time, it was never about control, she said. It was about balance, about remembering what we lost, together. Rylan sank to his knees beside her, his voice trembling. You could have told me. She smiled through the exhaustion. Would you have believed me? He almost laughed. Probably not. The wind picked up again, carrying the scent of ozone and new life. Above them, the sky began to clear, revealing stars faintly visible even in daylight. Stars that shimmered with faint pulses of blue, as if the entire system was resonating to the same song. Asha looked up. Do you feel it? He nodded slowly. Yeah, it's everywhere. She closed her eyes. That's the memory core's final function. It's seeding empathy across the network, reconnecting the old worlds, waking the silent ones. Lyra's dream. It's happening. Rylan looked toward the horizon. The desert was no longer dead. It was alive with light and color. Tiny organisms crawling from the sand. Green shoots breaking through the dust. He whispered, You saved them all. Asha smiled faintly, her voice a whisper. We saved each other. He helped her to her feet. Together they walked out of the broken outpost into the open desert. The air was warm, the light clean. Every step they took left glowing footprints that faded slowly behind them. They reached a ridge overlooking the expanse of Aurelia 9. The world that had once been a graveyard was now awakening, an entire planet remembering how to breathe again. Asha looked up at him. What happens now? Rylan watched the sky where the Dominion's ships had fled. They'll come back eventually, he said. They always do, but this time they'll find something waiting for them, something they can't burn or cage. And what's that? He smiled faintly. Hope. She leaned against him, exhaustion finally catching her. Then let's make sure it survives. Rylan looked down at her hand in his. So small, so alive, faintly glowing against his scarred fingers. We will, he said softly. The sun climbed higher, turning the desert gold. Asha's skin shimmered faintly in the light, her eyes reflecting the horizon. You know, she murmured, my people used to believe that when two souls align, they leave a mark in the stars. A constellation that never fades. He looked at her, a soft smile in his voice. Maybe we just made one. She laughed quietly, a sound fragile and beautiful. Then she looked at him with that strange, gentle certainty that had once belonged to Lyra. You'll keep wandering, won't you? Even after this. He nodded. It's what I do. Then take this, she said, pressing her palm to his chest. The faint glow of her hand sank into his skin, a pulse that resonated deep within him. A piece of the seed, a piece of me. Wherever you go, it will remind you what you're fighting for. He didn't know what to say. So he said the only thing that felt true. Thank you. Her smile deepened, soft and luminous. No, Rylan Thorne. Thank you for remembering. He leaned his forehead against hers. The desert wind fell still, and for one timeless heartbeat, Everything, stars, ruins, and ghosts seemed to breathe together. When he pulled back, she was smiling. Then she turned toward the horizon where the light met the sand. "Look," she whispered. A single wildflower bloomed at their feet, brighter than all the others, its petals reflecting both gold and blue. Rylan knelt, touching it gently. "What is it?" "The first of its kind," she said, "a reminder that even the deadest worlds can bloom again." He looked at her, eyes stinging. "Then I'll make sure it spreads." She nodded, her voice fading. "Then my work is done." Her body shimmered softly, her form flickering with light. Before he could reach for her, she dissolved into golden particles that drifted upward, carried by the wind. Rylan stood alone in the dawn, the flower glowing at his feet. The wind carried her voice, faint but clear. "You kept your promise." He raised his head toward the sky. The stars above shimmered faintly, as though they had heard her. He whispered, "Always." The horizon blazed with light, wildflowers spreading across the dunes until the desert itself looked alive again. And as the first ship from orbit descended, Dr. Voss's transport bringing new settlers to the reborn world, Rylan Thorne watched in silence, the wind tugging at his coat. He turned one last time toward the ridge where Asha had vanished. "Rest easy," he murmured. "We'll take it from here." The camera pulled back, out past the dunes, out past the atmosphere, into the black sea of stars, revealing Aurelia 9, blooming with blue light across its surface. And just above it, among the constellations, two new stars pulsed side by side, a wildflower of the cosmos, forever burning in the quiet between worlds.